and said, "Show us all what you can do if you really belong here." What would you do in her place? Comment below and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. It was the kind of silence that made your skin feel cold. Everyone knew why the teacher had called her up. It was not about the math problem. It was about the girl. An outsider, as some whispered. New in school, quiet, black, from a neighborhood most kids here would never visit unless their car broke down. The teacher, Ms. Harper, had been throwing subtle jabs all month, asking questions she knew the girl would not answer, mispronouncing her name even after being corrected. And now this, an intentionally complex equation on the board, and an invitation to be humiliated. The board was filled with numbers, a multi-step calculus problem, college level. "You can solve this, right? Since you say you love math?" The teacher smirked, arms crossed. A few students giggled. A few looked down, uncomfortable. And the girl? She slowly stood, picked up the chalk, walked to the board. But something in her eyes had changed. There was no shaking in her hand, no panic in her face, just calm, determination. Her fingers tightened on the chalk as if it were a sword, and in that moment, the room forgot how to breathe. Ms. Harper leaned casually on the edge of her desk, expecting hesitation, maybe even tears. She wanted to prove a point, and this was her stage. But instead, the girl did something that no one, especially the teacher, had expected. She erased a small part of the equation on the board, rewrote it with proper formatting, and said calmly, "This step is incorrect. Let me fix it first." A gasp rippled through the class. Some students leaned forward. One boy even whispered, "Wait, what?" The girl kept writing, step by step, clean and confident. Her handwriting was neat. Her logic was flawless. Within seconds, the board began to transform into something stunning. A clear, elegant solution that not only answered the question, but simplified it. Some of the students looked at each other, confused but impressed. Ms. Harper's face froze. When the girl reached the last line and boxed the correct answer, she turned around. Not cocky, not angry, just calm. "That is how you do it. And by the way, this is college-level calculus. I learned it from my mom. She is a professor." You could hear a pin drop. Even the class troublemakers stared in complete silence. Ms. Harper's lips parted slightly, but no words came out. And then, one slow clap, from the back, then another. And then the room erupted, not in loud cheering, but in something even more powerful, respect. A quiet, growing realization that they had just watched something unforgettable. Ms. Harper, now visibly unsettled, tried to reclaim control. She stepped forward, arms crossed, voice trembling just slightly. "Where did you learn to do that? That problem was not even from our curriculum." The girl paused. She did not raise her voice. She simply replied, "My father taught me before he passed away. He was a mathematician." The weight of those words settled over the room like a blanket. Suddenly, this was not just a math problem anymore. It was a moment, a memory, a challenge answered with dignity and strength. Miss Harper blinked, and for the first time looked truly unsure. "Still," she said, grasping at control, "this was not appropriate. You spoke out of turn." "But you called on me," the girl said softly, "and you asked me to solve it. I only did what you asked." The class grew tense again. There was no way to argue with that. The silence grew louder. Then another student stood up. "She did it better than you, Miss Harper," he said. "We all saw it." Another joined in. "You tried to embarrass her, but she just made us all proud." Miss Harper looked around, eyes darting, as if waiting for someone, anyone, to side with her. But all she found were stares. Honest, judging, unafraid. She took a small step back, bumping into her desk. And then the door opened. It was the vice principal. The vice principal's entrance sliced through the tension like a blade. He stepped in slowly, surveying the room with a curious glance. "What is going on here?" he asked calmly, but his voice carried weight. Miss Harper quickly straightened up and forced a smile. "Just a little classroom exercise, Mr. Dalton. Everything is under control." But the vice principal's gaze shifted to the student still standing near the board, the complex equation behind her, solved perfectly. "Is that your work?" he asked the girl. She nodded once, confident, calm. He looked at the board, squinting slightly. Then his eyes widened, just a bit. He turned to Ms. Harper. "You gave her this problem?" Ms. Harper stammered. "Well, yes, I thought it would be. Educational." Mr. Dalton shook his head slowly, almost in disbelief. "This is from our advanced senior curriculum. We only introduced it last year, and even then, only a few top-tier students could handle it." A hushed gasp passed through the class. The girl just looked down at her shoes as if wishing to disappear. But the vice principal was not done. He stepped closer to her and spoke with unexpected warmth. "And you solved it, just like that?" She nodded again. "Yes, sir." "Do you enjoy math?" "I do." Mr. Dalton smiled. "Well, you're about to enjoy it a whole lot more, because this," he gestured toward the board, "changes everything." Miss Harper tried to interject. "Sir, I believe this is being blown out of proportion." She still broke the classroom rules by speaking without permission. Mr. Dalton raised a brow. "And you gave her this problem to—" "What? Challenge her or humiliate her?" Miss Harper's mouth opened, but no words came out. He turned to the class. "Did anyone else see it that way?" Nearly every hand in the room went up. Miss Harper froze. The truth was exposed, and this time there was no hiding behind authority. Mr. Dalton took a deep breath, then turned back to Ms. Harper, his voice now firm and public. "I will be reporting this incident to the superintendent's office. This is not how we treat gifted students, or any student." The classroom was silent. The girl, still standing, looked around unsure of what to do. Mr. Dalton turned to her gently. "You may take your seat. You have nothing to prove." She walked slowly back to her desk, but something had changed. The other students were no longer looking at her with smirks or mockery. There was awe in their eyes now, respect, and maybe even regret. Ms. Harper tried to save face. "I was only trying to push her potential," Mr. Dalton cut in. "Number you were trying to embarrass her, but she embarrassed your entire bias instead." There it was. The truth no one had spoken aloud, but everyone had felt. The silence that followed was heavy. Mr. Dalton turned back to the girl. "What is your name?" "Amira," she replied. He smiled. "Amira, how would you feel about representing our school in the upcoming district math competition?" Her eyes widened. "Me?" "Yes, you." Miss Harper almost choked. "But she is not even—" "She is now," Mr. Dalton interrupted without looking at her, "and she will be trained by the top math instructor in the city, on our expense." The students whispered excitedly among themselves. Amira's lips parted as if trying to speak, but the words never came. Her eyes glistened. This was not just about a competition. This was about being seen for who she was, a genius in plain sight. The class bell rang, but no one moved. Mr. Dalton looked around and said, "Let this be the lesson today. Never underestimate someone based on what you see on the surface. Everyone slowly stood and filed out in silence, except for Amira, who remained seated, staring at the chalkboard. The numbers that once mocked her now looked like victory. Amira stepped out into the hallway, her books hugged tightly to her chest. Students passed her with wide eyes. Some nodded respectfully, others just stared. It was the first time she felt truly seen, not just noticed because of her skin, her silence, or the seat she took in the back of the class. Whispers followed her, but this time they were filled with admiration. She solved that in seconds. I had no idea she was that smart. Did you see Ms. Harper's face? For once, the hallway did not feel like a battlefield. It felt like a stage she had just walked off after a standing ovation. As she reached her locker, a girl who had previously mocked her for being too quiet approached hesitantly. "Hey, Amira, right? That was insane. You're like a math wizard or something." Amira gave a quiet smile. "I just like numbers." Before more could be said, Mr. Dalton approached. "Amira, would you walk with me to the office? There is someone on the phone who wants to speak to you." She blinked. "Who?" He grinned. "The district math coordinator." He watched the classroom feed. Amira's breath caught. There was a feed? Every classroom has a camera. Today, it might have captured something far more important than just a lesson plan. They walked together down the hallway, and for the first time, Amira felt the weight of something new. Possibility. She was not just the quiet girl in the back anymore. She was the one who shattered every expectation with a single line of chalk on a green board. And somewhere, deep in her heart, she began to believe she was born to do exactly that. As Amira stepped into the principal's office, the door quietly closed behind her, muffling the hum of the curious hallway. The room felt still, but not intimidating. Mr. Dalton offered her a seat and handed her the phone receiver. "Just speak clearly," he said. "They are expecting you." Amira held the phone with both hands. "Hello?" A warm voice responded. "Amira, this is Dr. Jensen. I oversee the state's academic excellence program. I saw the video from your class today. That equation you solved. I have professors who would have struggled with it under pressure." She sat back, stunned. "Thank you." "No, thank you. We have been trying to find students with extraordinary natural ability, not just for scholarships, but to join a mentorship initiative that works directly with university mathematicians. I would love to meet you and your family." Her hands trembled slightly. "Really?" "Yes. And Amira, you do not need to prove anything to anyone anymore. Your work speaks loud enough." When she hung up, Mr. Dalton smiled gently. "You just made this school's history." But the moment was interrupted by the soft creak of the office door. It was Ms. Harper. She walked in slowly, holding something, a printed copy of the equation Amira had solved, with her own incorrect attempts scribbled underneath. Her eyes, which once flashed with ridicule, now brimmed with shame. "I owe you an apology," she said softly. "I wanted to embarrass you. I assumed a lot." Amira stood up. "You did." Ms. Harper looked down. "And I was wrong." Amira's voice was calm. "I did not want to humiliate anyone. I just wanted to be left alone. You deserve more than that. You deserve respect." Silence passed between them, but this time it was not heavy. It was real. As Amira left the office, the bell rang, but she did not rush to her next class. She walked like someone who finally knew their place, not in the shadows, not in fear, but in the spotlight, on her own terms. because the truth had echoed across every chalkboard, every hallway, and every heart that had once doubted her. The quiet black girl had just rewritten the rules, and the world could no longer ignore the brilliance they tried to mock.